FX Nation, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And as we continue to answer all of your questions that I get asked on the most, here is another one. If there was one thing specifically that allowed me to be consistent in trading, what would that be? What was that thing that made me consistent? And so in this video, guys, I'm going to share with you what I believe is the one thing that made me be consistent in trading. All right. And so we're going to go through it. I'm going to break the entire thing down for you. So hopefully you can try it and hopefully it'll make you a consistent trader. So without further ado, guys, let's get this started. All right, guys. So let's talk about this. You know, as most of you know, or most of you should know, trading, whether it's stock trading, penny trading, Forex trading, futures trading, options trading, any kind of trading is extremely difficult. There's a reason why there's such a high percentage of people that end up losing. It's over 90%, okay, that end up losing or end up quitting trading in general. The one major thing that I did that allowed me to become consistent, because if you're not consistent in your trading, you're going to be having a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and it's never going to be a consistent outcome for you, which is essentially what you want if you're looking to be a trader for the next 10, 20, 30 years. All right. So what am I talking about that allowed me to become a better and more consistent trader? Well, what I'm talking about is a trade guides. All right. Trading guides. If you don't know what this is a trading guide is basically where you go ahead and you break down a specific trade setup on paper so you can visually see what that trade setup looks like. And essentially it allows you to be consistent because you're following that trade guide to the T and you're not breaking away from it. So one of the things that I found at the very beginning did not allow me to be a consistent trader was the fact that I was just all over the place and I was creating rules on the spot. And I was never following a structured set of rules that I knew on a specific strategy that would allow me to become a consistent trader. Let's go ahead and let's get right into this. So when we're talking about creating a trade guide, there are certain things that you need to have in place before you can even think about creating a trade guide. So let's go over those real quick. The first thing, and most importantly, is you need a back-tested trading plan or back-tested strategy. All right, you need to have a strategy, right, that's been back-tested that you know works over an extended period of time. Because if you don't have a back-tested strategy, how in the hell can you be consistent? All right, so that's the first thing that you're going to need. Once you have your strategy, once you've back-tested and you know that it works over an extended period of time, all right, then we need to talk about what are going to be your entry rules? What are going to be your exit rules? What are going to be your confirmation signals that you're going to use? What kind of risk management are you going to use for that specific trade setup? So all these things make up a trade guide. I'm going to show you is a trade guide that I use just specifically for a setup. If you're trading, whatever strategy you're trading, you can customize this to whatever that strategy is. I'm just going to share with you my specific trade guide for an example of a trade setup that I enjoy taking all the time. And essentially that's a type 3 setup. If you don't know what a type 3 setup is, just go to Trading with Market Makers playlist on our channel, and the entire strategy is there for free, and you'll know what I'm talking about when it comes to a type 3 setup. The first thing for me that I need on that I have on the trade guide basically is I need to have a directional bias. All right. So I need to have a directional bias. So for me, what does that look like? It looks like essentially me identifying the closest peak formation high or the closest peak formation low, the nearest reversal point from a major trend is basically what that is a peak formation. So I have to have my closest peak formation, and I have to be essentially within 150 pips from that closest peak formation. Okay, because that tells me that a new trend essentially has just started, and I want to be part of that new trend. All right, so the first thing that I have is directional bias. The second thing that I have is I have to have a correct pattern setup. Okay, so for this example, we're talking about type 3s. I have to have a type 3 setup that happens in the correct pattern and the correct timing of things, right? So it's got to be within the London box that for the indicators that we use. Okay, and I'm going to show you an example of what this trade setup would look like once I share with you the guide that I have. The 50 EMA has to be there to bounce off of price. This is very important. On a type 3 setup for me, I have to have the 50 EMA there to hold price in the middle of the Asian range. The entry setup for me is I must have a railroad track, a star pattern, or a quarter wood. That has to be there for me. And then I have to have a TDI has to be touching the 50 line on a type 3 setup. My risk is pretty simple, or my risk management plan, I should say, is pretty simple. It's a 20 pip stop loss max, a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio on all the trades, and I'm risking at maximum 1% of my account. So depending on the pair that you're trading, let's say for example, Euro USD, obviously the pip value of Euro USD is going to be way different than, let's say, a pip value of pound NZD. On Euro USD, I might only use maybe a 10 pip stop loss max. But on pound NZD, or let's say pound AUD or Euro JPY, or some of those pairs that the actual pip value is higher, I allow myself to do 20 pip, stop losses. But essentially, when I get to those 20 pips, that's basically the max range that I'm willing to give myself. And then the most important thing is, based on the account size, no matter what, I'm only risking 1% of my account for that specific trade. That's my trade guide that I use specifically for a type 3 setup. So what does that look like? Okay, let's take a look at an example here. So in this example here, you could see that we end up getting a type 3 setup. And so you can see the first box that you see, okay, the first box that you see here is the Asian range. That's where it has the A and then 29.4 pips. The next box is the London session box. That's the box that has 48.7 pips underneath it, right? So this is the timing part that I'm talking about, or the correct pattern, is the fact that during after the Asian range, price action is coming from the bottom and going up to the middle of the range. And basically, it's getting stopped at the middle of the range. The middle of the range is that dotted orange line that you see running across the screen. Okay? And then you see the 50 EMA, which is the light blue aqua line, you see how it's running right through the middle of the range, and it's acting as a barrier or as a roadblock essentially to the price action. Now, we're coming off of peak formation high. We're just coming off of a fresh peak formation high. The way that you can tell that is if you look at this purple line here, this is at 800. And so you can tell that we're just coming off of a fresh peak formation because the 800 is still right, it's trying to get over price. Okay, so once this day is over with, all of the EMAs are above price, basically. So the pattern is correct. It's coming from the bottom to the middle, getting stopped out, pinning to the 50, and then you're getting you get two different patterns on this one. You get to see a railroad track here, but then the big one is the star pattern right here. That's what gives me the actual entry, is the star pattern. You can see we're risking 15 pips on this one. Okay, and we're going 2 to 1 or almost 2.5 to 1. We're getting about 33 pips on this one. So if you just went 2 to 1 risk to reward ratio, you would have gotten, somewhere in the 30 pip, 29 pip range. Okay. Also, look at the TDI. The TDI is basically bouncing off the 50 line as well. And so the biggest difference, guys, that I can tell you for me is that I'm willing to wait for this specific setup. I'm in no hurry to take a trade that doesn't meet those requirements of my trade guide, because I know if I stick to the rules of the trade guide and I stick to this over an extended period of time, I know that I should have well above 75-80% win rate if I just stick to the rules of the trade guide that I created for type 3 trades. So the question is, whatever strategy you're using, okay, it doesn't matter what strategy you're using. You can use, there's hundreds and thousands of strategies out there. As long as your strategy is back tested and you know that it works over a long period of time, right? Start to create a trade guide for specific setups. So in this channel, we typically talk about 3 to 4 different types of setups, right? So if you, for example, like to trade type 1 setups, make a trade guide specifically for type 1 setups. If you like type 4s or type 2s, make those guides specifically for those setups. And then once you create the trade guide, all you have to do is follow the trade guide, and you will be consistent as long as you follow the rules that you've written yourself for that trade guide. All right. So guys, I hope that this video gave you some quick value on trade guides and how they can teach you and keep you being consistent in the actual market. All right, guys, if you need any more help, please join us on FXN Plus. We have just about another 2.5 weeks to go for the special on FXN Plus, which is getting the Blueprint Summit videos available to those users who sign up within the next 2.5 weeks. All right, guys, if you need any more help, join us on FXN Plus. We have weekly sessions every single week, every single Sunday. We have them Q&A sessions. We talk about the upcoming week and everything like that. You guys can ask as many questions as you want. And most importantly, we're just there to help as a community. Enjoy this week's trading, and always trade safe and trade consistent.